Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from Singapore, Mr. Nick Jonsson. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. Nick is the co-founder and managing director of Executives Global Network, EGN. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a triathlon athlete. We can see his book just behind us, which is Executive Loneliness. And he's a mental health and well-being enthusiast and educator. So Nick, let's talk about EGN, Executives Global Network. Tell me about this venture.
Yes, it's a networking platform, but we do networking a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. You know, Ashutosh, there's so many networking groups around there today, especially with social media and so on. Mm-hmm. But what we do a little bit differently is that we create smaller groups called peer groups, almost like mastermind groups. Mm-hmm. So it's all about pairing up the right business owners or the right business executives, so you are with relevant peers at your own age, and that you can discuss what is relevant for you. And what we also do is that everyone signing on disclosure agreement. So when you've signed an NDA, you should feel that this is a trusted network. We also make sure that you don't have any competitors in your group. Okay. And a group typically have 25 to 35 people, so there should be someone who has the answer to your questions in this group. And so that is how we create the groups, and each group then have a facilitator that we call a chair, and this chair person is trained by us and so on. So if you should summarize it, Ashutosh, it's almost like you have your own private advisory board.
Wow, fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about networking. You're a networking guru with EGN. How important is networking in our lives professionally and personally?
Well, I would say when it comes to professionally, it's an investment for yourself. I think especially today when we have this gig economy, you're working on contract to contract, and it's all about getting the next contract based on your referrals and using your network. So networking, therefore, for a professional has never been more important. And if I'm looking back at what the last 2 years during the pandemic, the executives who lost the job, when you ask them how did you get a new job, it's many times it's through the network. It's someone they knew who helped them. So in that sense, professionally, it's very important. But also it's important for you to save time rather than working in a silo or in isolation, looking for the answers yourself. Why not be connected with a network where you have someone who might done that failure or done a success before, and you can learn from them. That is what I would say is the most important professionally.
Okay. And personally?
I would say personally, it can be, as in my case, even be a lifesaver, which is related to my book there in regards to mental health. And it's really, if I should summarize it, it can be a cure for loneliness by having a personal network.
Very well said. So, you said that in EGN, you help people to network better. One is to form groups of 20, 25 people. Second is being part of a large community. If I'm a part of EGN, how do I network better?
It is by the administration and the infrastructure that we have created around it. So what we are specializing at EGN is the facilitations of the meetings, but it's also the administration before and after, all the between communication. Because if you are a busy senior executive, or even if you're working in the middle management, you're so busy on your day-to-day job that you don't have time to also arrange for these sessions. So that is, we take away all those headaches. And we even reach out to you. If you're a member of one of our groups, we will reach out to the member before and say, what are you working on now? Do you have any challenges inside your business that you want to take into the next peer group meeting to get some support on? And we even help to ask you if you have any strategies you're working on. Would you like to get this presented in front of the peer group to get some feedback on it? So that is where we are a little bit different.
Very interesting. My next question to you, Nick, is at what stage of one's life should one start to think of networking professionally?
Yesterday.
Okay.
Well, if you haven't started yet, and then it's today. But I would say it's about your whole life. You build a relationship, and I'm sure many of the listeners also will look back at their university times, their alumni, and they have a strong network. Perhaps the first time you really learn to network professionally is in an alumni network, and you then maintain and stay in touch with these networks, hopefully. And so I would say it should be an ongoing cycle all through your life, and the key there is to remain in touch with them and nurture those relationships.
Yet people say networking is good, too much networking is bad. I'd love to get your perspective.
Well, I would say it's about quality rather than quantity. I can see where they're coming from. I think we all have been to those traditional networking events when it's in a ballroom and it's like almost like speed dating with people running around with business cards trying to get each other's phone numbers. And the next day you come to your desk and you have 10 emails from salespeople trying to sell you insurance plans and so on. And that is, I think, it's awful. It's a waste of everyone's time, and that is the networking that we need all to avoid. However, networking then in a quality manner, where you have a smaller group that you can connect with, and that you then add value and you are helping each other. That is where networking really can be an investment for your time.
And my next question to you is the impact or the use of social media to build networks. I mean, right now, all the young people seem to be talking of only likes and how many shares have they got. Is that networking, or how does one use social media to build networks?
I would say social media can be a good door opener to networking and relationship building. You can, for example, create an event on LinkedIn where you can give a talk on a topic that you are an expert in. In that sense, you can then connect people who are interested in this topic to join this talk. You can then set up a follow-up call or smaller meetings where you can actually network. So in that sense, I see social media very much as a door opener to create networking, but to nurture the network, it takes your own skills, and may you do through Zoom meetings or other means to meet up.
Fascinating. So now let me come back again, based on everything that you've said, to the little groups that you form in EGN. I'm very fascinated with what you do in these little groups. I've been a YPO member for the last 27 years, and we have something called a forum, which is a very small group of people. I'd love to understand, how do you get your 20, 22, 25 people to interact with one another? Are they in one city? Are they across countries, multiple cities? How do these interactions happen?
Well, it's a little bit similar, I believe, in many ways as YPO, which is a fantastic organization. So, but at the moment, then I'm responsible for EGN in Singapore, and it's for executives and business owners who are based in Singapore. This is our local chapter. So in that sense, we have also a chapter in, for example, Thailand, in Hong Kong. We have Australia and Sweden and so on. And it's very much a local chapter for the reason that many of the challenges and the problems are local, and you want to be have people inside your peer group who understand your market. So in that sense, it's very relevant, and that is the difference. If you would go over to Harvard University and you join one of their confidential peer groups, why that is on a very, very high level, it might not be so relevant for you if you're running a business in, let's say, India or Singapore. You want to be discussing with executives or business owners in your market. That's what we found.
And you also mentioned that you get all the members to sign an NDA.
Yes.
How enforceable is such an NDA? Because in a group that is so close, you would tend to be able to share some of your deepest secrets. Yes, and let me take it even one step backwards there, and how we do when we actually get new members into the group. If I'm speaking with someone who's interested in joining EGN, I do the vetting first. I make sure I look at the profile of the person to make sure that they are up to the level and have the seniority required for that particular group. And then after I have assessed this person, I will make a one-page summary that I will send out to all the other members of the peer group
for them to also approve or reject or challenge this new addition. And here also, we do that just like a kind of housekeeping, but also to make sure that everyone respects the rules and regulations. And we have a strict no sales policy in EGN. You're not allowed to sell your product or services or promote them even to each other. It's about knowledge exchange. So then comes the NDA in. Once you have been approved as a member, you are given a welcome letter with an NDA, which you are to sign. And it has never been enforced. We have never had a legal battle as such. It's more an honorary thing. It is to show that this is a framework where we have a lot of trust. And it has taken you perhaps a few days to be even accepted, and you will know this from YPO. It's not for everyone. It had some process to get in, but once you're inside, then you feel, oh, this is my network, and you will feel that that you have actually gone through the steps to be approved. You have signed your NDA, and you will respect the rules.
Fascinating, wonderful. So one more question relating to networking before I move to your book. What have been some of your challenges as you have built this network?
I would say the last 2 years it's been to keep up with the demand, because the pandemic have thrown everyone, should I say, in the open to looking for new solutions, new ideas. And networking is flourishing, especially online networking in the last 2 years. So for us, we have grown 50% in Singapore in the members database. Since the beginning of the pandemic. So we have to keep up with this demand, because people have been thrown new challenges they never faced before in their life or in their career. And why try to reinvent the wheel when your neighbor or your other neighbors might also be in the same boat, and you can share the problem and look for the solutions together. So in that sense, it's been for us how to keep up with the growth and to build new groups, and also then to certify the facilitators required for the groups.
Amazing. So Nick, let's now move to your book, Executive Loneliness. Before I get into the book, is it available on Amazon and other platforms?
Yes, it is indeed. You can look for Executive Loneliness on Amazon. It's there. It's also on Google and Apple.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about the book and your hypothesis.
Yes, the book actually came out from a survey I did about 2.5 years ago in Singapore, where I surveyed senior executives and business owners on loneliness. And I was quite shocked with the results I got back, which showed that about 30% of the executives and business owners were lonely. So I wanted to look a little bit deeper, and I had a box where they could tick if they want to be interviewed on the topic. And I interviewed them, and the results I had from this was fascinating. So fascinating that when I took it to the local radio station, they invited me right away. And before I knew it, there was a 4-page spread in the Business Times in Singapore on this topic. And that's when I knew I was onto something. So and I continued the interviews. So I spent 2 years interviewing senior executives and business owners on the topic mainly of loneliness, to figure out how are they feeling in their decision making. And as the saying goes, it can be quite lonely at the top. So that's why I decided to write a book on this topic.
Wonderful. And how do you define loneliness?
Oh, that's a big question, but I would say like this: loneliness is different from being lonely. And loneliness, I say, is that when you have lost touch, when you feel lonely, even in a crowd. So let's say that you are with your colleagues, you are with your family, but your head is not there. You're not physically present. You're feeling lonely in a crowd. That was what happened to me a few years ago. When I was overworked and I had some challenges at home front, I lost touch with everything. I got unhealthy. And from that, I basically lost touch with myself and other people.
Interesting. And what are some of the ways to tackle some of this loneliness, other than, of course, ordering your book and reading all your findings?
Well, it is, I say, if it's one thing I should pinpoint when it comes to loneliness, it's about asking for help when you need help. Because it is when we sit there with a problem or a challenge and we keep it to ourselves, and we obviously, if we keep it to ourselves, we will come up with the same solutions the whole time, and it's not the right ones, and the problem becomes bigger, and we feel that the whole world is against us. We feel that no one understands us. But as soon as we just speak, may it be to a family member, a colleague, or a friend, or in an anonymous support group, or to a coach, or to a therapist. As soon as we voice the problem we are facing, we immediately start to feel that kind of a relief.
Interesting. So Nick, now let's move to your other area of expertise, which is mental health and well-being. Tell me a little bit about the work you do here.
Yeah, so as part of the book then, and in the book I have a lot of resources and so on. I'm also a volunteer for a suicide prevention agency in Singapore called SOS Samaritans. It's a 24/7 hotline which people can call if they are worried, if they have perhaps a relative or themselves are not feeling okay. So that it's a support hotline there. So I'm on a mission to increase the awareness of this hotline and also raise funds to the hotline. And they've done a wonderful job. And as you can imagine, during the pandemic, there's been an increased demand for this. Actually, the calls have gone up about 20% over the last 2 years to the hotline. So that is one thing I do. But I'm also running a support group here in Singapore, a mental health related support group for executives who want to discuss their mental health related challenges. And finally, I would say that there's a lot of work to be done in addiction. A lot of people have fallen into addictions in the last 2 years. If you, for example, have been borderline before, let's say to drugs, to alcohol, or maybe gambling or eating, then many people have perhaps tipped over. You can just imagine if you had a drinking problem before, suddenly you're working from home, you don't have to check into an office. It's easy to then to perhaps overdrink, and especially when the stress and the pressure is on. And that is where a lot of people have fallen in the last few years. And that's where I'm also volunteering with that and supporting with those who need help.
Amazing. And you just spoke of mental health challenges. What are some of the major challenges we are facing in our world?
Well, I would say it's misunderstandings, disconnections, and we see it on social media. We even hear of friends who block each other because they have different opinions. It is everyone has an opinion on everything, and I think that is some of the challenges. It is that we perhaps communicate more, but it's on social media rather than taking a step back and connecting and building strong, firm relationships, as we can do online also. It is about having one-on-one time with someone online.
My next question is that, you did speak about the pandemic, but I'd love to get your perspective in a little more detail about how has the pandemic impacted mental health and well-being?
I would say that there's been the pros and the cons. And let's start with the pros. And the pros is that I believe that the stigma of mental health is being reduced. It is a little bit more socially acceptable now to talk about mental health. I hear about more team members raising their hand saying, I'm not okay, I need help, I feel burnt out. These conversations would have such a taboo and stigma are finally now being discussed. I also see that more business leaders are aware, they're trying to check in with the teams and so on. That I see on the benefit, but the challenges has been linked to what I said before, perhaps addiction, isolation, many people who perhaps are introverts like myself who prefer to isolate ourselves now have had a perfect excuse. It's been okay, we've been isolating ourselves, not knowing that that's not good for us. We need perhaps to be connected with real people and meet people.
And I would imagine networking using something like an EGN platform or coming into your meeting rooms would be an area which would definitely help an individual to get in touch with other people and hopefully remove the loneliness and hopefully also do some work on well-being. What is your perspective?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we almost call, the peer group meetings, which are confidential and the safe space. It's almost like one of those AA meetings which you see on the Hollywood movies with a circle and where people are sharing what's going on. And typically in our meetings, and they are 4 hours, typically the first half an hour is just that. It's checking in, letting go what's on your shoulder. Oh yeah, this has happened. My company is in problem. We cannot import any products, and all of these, and my staff are on sick leave, and all these kind of issues. Just to spell it out to hear, oh, it's also the case in my company. It's also the case in mine. You start to feel that sympathy right away, and that is so important for us humans.
And yes, you're so right, because as an entrepreneur or as a top executive, the moment you realize that you're not alone and others are going through the similar problem, your own problem becomes easier to handle.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So just one more question left for you, and I'll come back to you on a combination of EGN, executive loneliness, and well-being. Given the kind of pressures that all of us are facing in our work, in the environment, with the pandemic, what would you, as a wellness, mental health, networking guru, advise to the hundreds of thousands of people who listen to us?
Well, I think that the advice, and it goes back to what I said before, is that, ask or speak up and surround yourself with both, then first a professional network. So relating to, if you're a business owner or you're an executive, have a professional network with people who understand you. And again, not the big network with 1,000 people, but a smaller network targeted where you have chance to speak up. That's on the professional side. And on the personal side, if you are blessed with having a few close friends, nurture them, look after them, and be there for them. And it's a give us gain here. It's about being there for others, and they will be there for you. If you are lonely and you don't have someone to talk to, then there's a wonderful range of support groups. A lot of them are on volunteer basis. They don't cost anything to join. There's also coaches, life coaches, and so on. And should you not feel well, speak up to a therapist. I was holding back on that too long. I was hiding with what I call in the book a smiling depression, trying to look good to the whole world when I was suffering inside. And that is something that I wish I stopped doing earlier, and just speak up. There's people there to help you.
Amazing. Nick, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me at such length about your incredible Executives Global Network. I think you're doing an amazing thing supporting so many people around the world to network better and to basically, as the old saying goes, let your hair down in front of friends and know that you're not alone. And thank you again for talking to me about your book and the amazing things that you're talked about for mental health and well-being. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.